mow my lawn right after the meeting. We get done really fast, lots of weight now. I like it when it's nice and dry.
Yeah.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh. Hi, John.
Hey guys.
Morning.
Hello.
Morning, Kelly.
I got a little nervous. There's a lot of cars in the parking lot, and I was like, oh, how many people are there? But it's quite expected.
I'm glad we're predictable.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the mail-in ballot thing?
What about them?
What was your answer, Kelly?
Ask me what I think about the mail-in ballot.
Yeah,
You're doing it?
Yeah.
yeah, I did it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh,
I think I might have forgotten a
did
meeting
you send
last.
my welder in, or what did we decide?
Yep, it's sent in.
Okay,
They're supposed to, once they get it, they're gonna let me know what
okay,
they think before they just send a bill for $500
Yeah.
or whatever. So
all right.
they're gonna look at it, see what's going on,
So Kelly,
send me an
I think
estimate.
there is a set that is true black and white, and it will get rid of all the shading.
Yep, there is.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even look at them, how they printed. All right, they're not overly helpful, sorry. Look at 'em.
So is that the primary or your ballot?
That's primary.
Sorry.
I was reading, when I got the packet, I was looking at the,
What's that?
I said I have voted absentee by mail ever since I started here.
Oh, I suppose because you're working on
But I was gonna tell you too, if you need to borrow one, I have one, you could
it.
borrow.
All these things you
I
put
got
on
a stick welder too.
Okay.
You know,
I
fired that up
actually
the
got
other day at work.
a pretty
Those might be
nice
different.
ESOB.
What's
That's
that?
wire feed,
Might be
you can
different.
use 110 or 240.
Oh,
But-
oh, really?
So, and it's small enough that you can carry it around. So, but
I should probably, I would have been better off the very first time that one took a dump to just buy one of those little ones like that.
yep.
For as much as I weld, those little things work pretty good, actually.
Yeah, and I think the one I have is a 200 and some amp one too. So it's not
Oh,
a
really?
little one. Yeah.
You could burn through some thick stuff if you had to.
Yeah. So, but it's just a real nice small
Yeah.
welder. So,
Well, you see some of those that they bring in on a job site, and they're welding handrails and stuff. I mean, they're just little buggers.
Yep.
And they do a nice job. Of course, the guys know how to weld, but
I had a 110 one before this. Just it was $350 welder, but I had nothing but problems with it. So I ended up sending them back to the company, 2 of them.
really,
And they sent them back to me, said there's no problem. It was me. So in the meantime, I was pissed and I bought a real expensive one. But so
I hate that when they say you're the first person that ever had trouble with something like that.
that's how these were. I had 2 of them. I got this one and I was having problems, and then the guy's like, "Well, just order another one, defect that one out." Had same problem with the second one, and they were like consecutive serial numbers and the whole 9 yards. I'm like, well, they must have had a problem.
Right.
But then I ended up getting them back. It was a bad deal. I lost big time on that.
Well, in the long run, it's probably better it was you and not a customer, because you would have probably ended up eating it anyway.
It looked stupid because you sold them a piece of junk or something,
Right.
Yeah, she was starting,
Commissioner Chafee, is that you?
hot water,
Yeah,
burning stuff, so.
that's getting dangerous, so. That's too bad.
Wood stove completely going.
Oh, sure.
No, I don't.
My phone, I just had the stupid thing. Between looking for my phone and a 1/2 inch and 9/16 inch wrench, I think, I swear to God, I waste half of my life. Didn't find a 9/16 inch wrench, did you?
Look, but I'm leaving. See you later. It gets to be 3:30 and I'm not home. Grab that stuff and pick her up at Chrissy's.
Okay.
I'll keep in touch.
It's caller 2C.
Looking at with that.
Commissioner Chafee, are you on the line?
I would even like typically it's.
From the chair. Yeah, people need one, you really need to show me. There you go, this is where you are.
Yeah, we've got, right. You know.
Yes, David, I'm here. Anybody there?
Hello.
Hello?
Oh, yeah. Podcast.
Everything was gonna get poured out.
Is there anybody there?
Yeah, who's talking?
They don't care. They don't want. Oh, the township now.
Steve is the township guy and Greg Beck.
One guy says this. Your house
Becky. Okay, we will get started. It is 10 o'clock. Hopefully, everybody is dialed in that needs to be. This meeting will be in person and via WebEx, video conference, and stream live out on the internet. Not more than 2 county commissioners will be present at the meeting room. The public may join the meeting via WebEx in person at the meeting room or watch the live stream. If joining the meeting in person, the total number of people, including commissioners, cannot exceed 10 and social distancing of at least 6 feet will be in effect. The governor of the state of Minnesota has issued Executive Order 20-01 declaring a peacetime emergency and coordinating Minnesota's strategy to protect Minnesotans from COVID-19. On March 24th, 2020, the Pine County Board of Commissioners declared a local emergency for Pine County. Based on these conditions, the chair of the Pine County Board of Commissioners has determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statute 13D.021 Subdivision 1 have been met, and it is not practical or prudent for all members of the county board to meet in person. The public is invited to join the meeting in person or remotely, and it lists the phone numbers, and it's all available on our Pine County website. We will now call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I see Matt and John and Josh. Steve Chafee on. Yes, I see Steve Chafee. So the board is all here. Public forum, is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? If you do, limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Can I speak up right now?
No.
Public hearing site.
Okay, I hear nobody. We'll move on to adopting the agenda. Any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chair, we have a correction to a regular agenda item 3B, authorizing the public land sale. Parcels 11 and 12 should be subject to the agricultural lease A-1-20. And then if we could add a letter of support for the Mille Lacs Bank, or excuse me, for Mille Lacs Corporate Ventures, a grant application for a broadband feasibility study, if we could add that to 8A. And then we have just learned that the state of Minnesota is planning to close the Willow River Prison. And so I'm wondering if commissioners would want to have that under commissioners update, any discussion on that. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Okay,
Ludwig will move as amended.
Moral second.
got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Morris to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Chafee? Commissioner Chafee? District 4, Commissioner McRae?
Excuse me, Debbie, did you hear Commissioner Chafee say aye?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig?
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland?
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to the minutes of the board reports and correspondence. The Pine County Housing Redevelopment Authority, regular meeting of May 27th and June 24th. the Pine County Surveyor's monthly report for July 20.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
I think you skipped the minutes.
Yes, I'm noticing that. And the minutes of,
The board.
yeah, let's go back to approve the minutes. I got too overzealous in checking off what we're doing here. July 21st, 2020 County Board minutes and summary for publication. Thanks, Matt.
Moore will move them.
McRow, second.
Got a motion by Moore, second by Mickret to approve the board minutes from the July 21st. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shafee.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll do the minutes of the board and correspondence for the housing, HRA, and the Pine County Surveyor monthly report.
Chafee moves that.
McRow, second.
A motion by Chafee, second by Mickret to approve those reports. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to approval of the consent items.
Commissioner Ludwig will move. McRow, second.
Got a motion by Ludwig, second by Mickret for the consent items. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore. District 3, Commissioner Shafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the regular agenda. Tax forfeit land sale public hearing is opposed by Wilma Township. And so parcel being opposed is a 53 acre section 18 and 160 acres in section 9. We'll hear a presentation by staff in regards to this, first of all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, Ryan has a PowerPoint he's going to put up for me here in just a second. I just wanted to do a quick overview of the tax forfeit land management that we do, and then just address kind of the program itself before we get into the Wilma Township specific information. All right, do I have a clicker, Ryan, or are you gonna advance it?
I'll do it.
Super, sounds good. So I just wanted to do a quick review of just tax forfeited land and what happens and how we get it. So property forfeits due to non-payment of property taxes. Currently, the statute is after 3 years, the property then forfeits. So that time period has been compressed over the years. Back in the early 2000s, it was as long as 7 years. Oh.
Sorry.
Can you guys hear me?
We're just here.
Yep.
Okay. So when the property forfeits for non-payment of property taxes, the title actually reverts to the state of Minnesota. in trust for the local taxing jurisdictions. So that's in trust for the county, the school district, the township, or city. The lands are managed by the county though, so we've got Greg in the room, the land commissioner. And he's our county forester as well, so he manages the lands, while they're in the state's ownership. Currently, there's approximately nearly 42,000 acres of tax forfeit land in Pine County. And while the properties are in that status, they do not pay property taxes. We do get a PILT or a payment in lieu for these properties. And so the county receives $2 an acre PILT, payment in lieu every year for that. Of that, 10% has to be transferred to the townships or cities. So the townships and cities get 20 cents an acre. And I've got some slides further in that shows how that compares to property taxes. County and forfeit land management. So Greg operates under 4 principles. He operates under sustainable forestry practices. So Joe is working through the timber inventory to make a really good plan for laying out when we need to harvest and things like that. He looks at timber production and sales. That's a good revenue source for the county, the schools, and the townships. We look at it for recreational use. So we do have some recreational use, such as hunting and four-wheeling on some of our lands. And then we also do this tax forfeit land. Greg manages them for just land sales and exchanges. So sometimes we'll do exchanges, for example, with the DNR to make larger land masses, or to get access to properties that we have and things like that. Part of the process of tax forfeit land is the county board has to classify the land as conservation or non-conservation. And this big long list is the things that have to be taken into consideration when determining the classification. I'm not going to read them all to you, but it goes through everything of, does it make sense, does it have some sort of use that it would make sense in private ownership, or would it be more of a public benefit to just keep it in public ownership? And so we'll just kind of work through those things. The conservation classification, it's generally held for long-term county management. That might be for timber or gravel resources, or it might just have some sort of environmental factor that just makes sense for us to hold on to it. In Pine County, we have taken it a step further and actually memorialized a pretty big chunk of acres of our tax forfeit land. So just over 36,000 acres are considered memorial forest. So that is, the county board by resolution said these are properties that they're conservation. We intend to hold them for a very long time. When we memorialize properties, we look at them as large acreage if they have timber or resource potential. So again, the timber or gravel resources or any other resources. We look at, do we have access to these properties, because it doesn't make sense for us to keep properties that we can't get to. Environmental uniqueness. We did a land tour last fall, and you'll remember some of those properties that we went to, like the one off the Sioux line right on the right on the river there. There's different properties that make sense for us to keep. And then just public recreational value. Is there some sort of resource here that the public is benefiting from having that in tax forfeit land status? And then non-conservation classification, those are generally properties that we identify that they're more short-term properties. There's not any reason that the county over a very long time needs to keep them. They don't generally meet the criteria listed under memorial forest. And so when we determine a property's non-conservation classification, we have to notify the township or city of that classification and also the DNR. And then also notify them if we intend to sell, which is why we're here today. We've got 2 properties in Wilma Township where the township, after the township was notified, they let us know that they disapprove. And so statute says then we need to go through the procedure we're here for today. And so today we are having a public hearing. And so people can submit comments or recommendations about the classification or reclassification of the tax forfeit land. And after you hear the testimony, you'll need to decide when considering comprehensive plans that apply. So the only comprehensive plan that applies is the county comprehensive plan. And so after you consider the testimony, the county comprehensive plan, you'll need to decide if you want to classify, reclassify, or delay taking action on the parcel. So currently, we have a resolution that says our intention is to classify these parcels as non-conservation and sell them. So you will need to make a decision today of if you want to do that. Or do you want to reclassify them back to conservation, or do you just not want to do anything today? These are pictures of the properties in question. So this is 53 acres in section 18 of Wilma Township. Just to give you a little bit of footings of where you are, on the north side of the road is Duxbury Road. Kind of about a half a mile to the west is Crooked Lake Road of this. And then there's a little easement road, Dollar Lake Road on the east of the property. The bigger parcel is 48 acres. Am I right, Greg? I think so. The bigger parcel is 48 acres, and then the smaller parcel, which is really just the access parcel, is an additional 5 acres. And then the second parcel in question is this one here in the aqua color. It's 160 acres in section 9. Just to a quarter mile to the west is Tamarack River Road, you can see. And this parcel actually went through a public hearing just like this back on July 15, 2014, and via County Board Resolution 2014-04. The County Board at that time had decided to move ahead with classifying this parcel as non-conservation. So I do not have a belief that you actually need to act on this parcel today because you're not trying to reclassify this parcel. This parcel was already classified non-conservation and intended to sell back in. But I did want to address this one because I know this one was on the township's list. So in Wilma Township, just so that you know, without these parcels, if these parcels were to be sold, there's still just over 1,500 acres of tax forfeit land. And almost 1,300 of them are actually classified as memorial forest. So the county board has already said almost 1,300 acres you intend as public land, as memorial forest. And then there's also an additional 13 small lots in the town site of Duxbury that are also in tax forfeit status in Wilma Township. Just to give you kind of a overview of timber and land sales in Pine County, this is a 5-year chart that shows you over the last 5 years with our land sales and timber sales, the amount of revenue that has been generated for the county general fund, the schools, and the townships and cities. So if you add that up, you're at almost $7 million that's gone back to our local communities because of these timber and land sales. And so that's county overall. When we look at just Wilma Township specifically, I have it broken down into 2 columns. One that shows you for the properties that we sold over the last 5 years, what that revenue was, and then the properties that we just sold timber off of, what that revenue was. So between those 2 revenue sources over the last 5 years, Wilma Township has received over $90,000 because of the activities, sales and timber sales on the tax forfeit property. One interesting thing that I think kind of highlights how much money that is for Wilma Township over that same 5-year time period. Their total tax levy was $178,000. And so this revenue is 50% of that tax levy. So that's a big number of a big amount of money that Wilma Township has received because of these activities. And then here's my slide that just shows the payment in lieu versus property tax, just to give you an idea. So I did this on the parcels that have been sold over the last 5 years in Wilma Township. And I did it for 2020, and I only looked at the township portion of the taxes. So on the left-hand side, you've got the parcel numbers that have been sold, their acreage, and then how much of the 2020 taxes properties are paying to Wilma Township. So it equals $435. And then in 2020, if the township would have received a PILT payment instead for these properties, so if these properties hadn't been sold, how much would the township be getting? At $76. So my far right column just shows you the difference. Because these properties were sold and put back in the tax rolls, Wilma Township is receiving $360 each year. Our proposed sale details, so these parcels are intended to be included on our September land sale auction. And so the first parcel, the bigger parcel, the 160 acres, has an appraised at $89,000. After taking out the administrative costs and statutory withholdings, if that property were to sell at $89,900, I'd estimate that Wilma Township would receive almost $11,000. And then the bottom parcel, the 53 acres, if that were to sell at the appraised price of $59,900, I estimate that Wilma Township would receive over $7,000. And that is the end of my presentation. I went through that. Feel free to ask questions if you have anything. Greg, if you have anything to add.
Covered it all.
Kelly, I do have a question. If a township or a city where the property is says we would like that property for our own use, can we make a deal with them for purchase of that or donate it to them, or how does that work, or do they just have to buy it at the land auction?
So they can do it one of two ways. So they could request to just purchase it. And at that point, Greg, you can jump in let's have Greg. Greg, come up here and answer that question.
You could have an example of that.
Right.
Within a township, how would the DNR legal thing is? Township could acquire something land from the county.
I can't hear that answer.
Okay.
Greg's coming up to fill that all in.
Okay.
Oh, morning. What you're asking, Steve, is what's called a conveyance. And part of the process of selling or classifying the properties as non-conservation / we're thinking of selling, we'll bring it to the township or the city and they approve it, but they can do what's called a request of property for a conveyance. Not every property qualifies. There's two ways you could do that. One, the value of the property. Another way they can do that is for a conditional use, which is essentially an application fee to the state. They don't really pay the value of the property. But not every public use is allowed. So there are certain criteria that allow that conveyance to a township to occur. And Mike had just mentioned, he was bringing this up a couple years ago, there was a parcel of property behind their park system by the Eagle Head, the DNR building. And they considered it township years ago, but there was some flaw in how that was perceived. But anyway, they did a conveyance. I think that was a additional use. So it's for their park system. They picked it up just for the application fee. Is that what you were talking about, Diesel? Yeah. So yeah, that's a few years ago they did that. So yes, to answer your question, Steve, in certain situations, a conveyance.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm really having a hard time hearing Kelly and Greg. I really didn't get, could you kind of give an overview of what he just said? Because I couldn't make it out at all.
Well, Greg said, I'll try to paraphrase here. There are some ways that a city or a township can convey the property from the tax forfeit into their own hands. For instance, if they wanted to make a park, and I know Greg didn't say this, but I know part of my question I think was in cities sometimes there's a lot that goes tax forfeit, and somebody like Habitat for Humanity says we will build a house on that lot, but we can't pay anything for the lot. so the city will get that conveyed to them and they will donate it to Habitat. If I'm wrong on that, Kelly or Greg, let me know, but I think that's kind of how it works.
So in a situation like this, Steve, then these properties wouldn't qualify for that?
I don't believe they have been classified in any one of those situations so that township could make a case to have that conveyed to them. Am I correct?
Correct. So at this point, the township could choose to take that as an option that they would like to either purchase the property or have it on one of those conveyances, those conditional conveyances for certain uses.
But they could, let's say those 15 lots that are in Duxbury, they could take 3 or 4 of those lots and say, we're going to put some housing there. And they could draw up a plan that says, we're gonna develop some housing, correct?
Sure, go for it, Greg.
If we were to offer those parcels, and classify them as non-conservation, he could make a request for that, which the county board would review and either approve or disapprove. I think those lots, though, for what you're describing, might not be suited for that purpose.
Okay.
But it's a possibility that they could make a request for that, just like they did on the parcel behind their park.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not a given that a conveyance would occur. There's certain criteria that the state requires for a conveyance of public use purpose. And then also it's based on county board.
Did that clear it up for you, Steve?
Yeah, a little bit. I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
Is the township aware of that opportunity, or that they could do that, Greg?
I believe they are, because they have done it in the past for their park.
Okay. Other question I had for Greg was on this 160. You know, we voted on this, I think, in 2014, whenever. And has that been offered in the auction yet at all, or is this the first time?
This will be the first year that it's offered. We had a timber sale on the parcel, and that was what held it back.
So the timber's been harvested off it already, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was finished last year, so this year we're offering the parcel for sale.
Yep.
And I was going to ask that because I see on when I was looking in here, it said $30,000 worth of timber, but that's already been harvested then.
No, there still is timber on the property. We did a selective cut on part of it, so there is still timber value on the parcel. And that's been taken into consideration, appraisal of it as well.
Is there any timber on the 53 acres?
Not of a commercial value, no, but there is.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yes. Yep.
Is this the only property in Wilma Township offered up on this auction? Or is there other ones?
These two parcels.
These are just the only two, yes.
Okay, and is there, what is the reasoning that they don't want us to sell it?
Mike's here, and so at the public hearing part, he can speak to that.
Oh, okay, all right. So
Next. I think he'll be next. Right? Any other questions from the board? We'll have an opportunity after, but we will open it up to the public. And I understand there's somebody from Wilma Township there that wants to speak.
Yep, my name is Mike McCullough. I'm on the town board at Wilma Township. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, very good.
The reason we have opposed the sale of property within the township is for our future generations. We've talked about this for years on selling off land. They don't make any more anymore. Our people within the township have voted over the years for us to be on the board, and they want to see things stay the same it is right now for the public to be able to use some of this land. That's why we've, opposed some of these sales. I know Greg's done a good job putting some stuff into conservation parcels and different things. We appreciate that an awful lot. But once we sell these pieces off, they're gone. They can never be used again by the public. One family or one person or whatever it might be able to use it. The smaller parcel acreage along Dollar Lake Road has been used by the public for, my grandma and grandpa, and before that, picked blueberries there. It's probably one of the better blueberry patches in our area. I know they're relevant to the town board to a point, or the county board, but seeing that stuff go, it's gone forever. And that's why they asked me on our meeting night, come and speak about that parcel right there. Our opinion is we hate to see anything go because it is gone forever. You guys' grandkids or great grandkids will never be able to go on that piece of property again. That other 160 acres, I believe it is back there. The reason we opposed that at one time, I know it's not up for issue right now, is because it's a landlocked piece. We've gotten in some hassles with stuff that got sold that was landlocked in the past. And our township didn't want to have to get into legal problems dealing with that. That's kind of why we said no when we were asked about that before. I know you guys have pushed it forward. It is going to go up for sale. We're concerned with when somebody buys it, if it isn't one of the adjoining landowners, that we're going to have a hassle. It's a big swamp there that they're going to have to cross to build a road into it. And so it's wetlands. And we're just afraid that the township is going to get stuck with some attorney fees and stuff trying to fight that. I know whoever buys it is responsible for attorney fees, go in and out of there and stuff with the road right away, but we still get stuck in the middle of this. It's happened before. So that's what we have to say from Wilma Township Board anyway. I'm just here to speak for the people. Thank you. Any questions?
Mike, can you just stay there a second in case we have some questions for you? I really appreciate you coming, explaining it. You kind of hit right to my heart when you talked about blueberries. I love blueberries, but I think, from a perspective of the county board is we can't keep everything public land. We've got Pine County has an abundance of public land, and so we're not trying to be mean or mean-spirited. This land was privately held and went tax delinquent for some reason, and so we're trying to get it back on the tax rolls, and I believe it's probably been tax delinquent for many years, but nevertheless, I appreciate you voicing the township's concern and being willing to come, and you did a fine job. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mike from the board? Well, I guess you can sit down, Mike, but thank you.
Thank you for the time, and we appreciate whatever you guys decide. I just have to tell you what the people say.
Yep, thank you. Thank you much. We will close the public unless is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak?
There's nobody else in the meeting room.
Okay, and I don't see anybody on a call that I don't recognize. So we will close the public hearing and go back to the county board for any additional discussion.
I do have one, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
This question's for Kelly. About how much new land goes tax forfeited every year? I know that goes up and down remotely, but you know, is it, and I guess I don't even know how to phrase that question. Is it, do you put a value on it? Do you put acreage on it? But it's not like, we don't ever get new tax forfeited land, right? It
Correct.
happens every year.
Right, so every year some comes on, some goes off. Over the last few years, it's kind of been a net zero. We sell kind of the same amount as we get. So, you know, it's been going down a little bit. So our total acreage has been going down with some over the years. But there's always more coming on.
Yeah, and we take that into effect typically. I mean, if we're only, I'm just gonna throw some number. If we only get 1,000 acres a year, on average, we're not gonna sell $10,000 a year or anything like that, you know? So, I mean, as far as that goes, the land committee, that's typically kind of how you do it, right? I mean, just so, or I don't know.
I think if we
How do
didn't,
decide how many acres are gonna be sold?
How we define that?
How do we decide? Yeah.
Always,
It goes back to what you said, Matt, what, you know, the forest.
the what, Matt? I lost you.
Greg is gonna talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
How we've determined, what we sell on the tax forfeited properties on an annual basis is, and we have the properties that we have that are non-memorialized. And, we're coming somewhat to the end of the sales of those, but we determined years ago that there were certain parcels that we've had long-term and that we would sell approximately 800 to 1,000 acres of those properties every year. And we're coming to the end of those. The other parcels are the recent forfeitures. Unfortunately, you know, we do get properties back from the private people on an annual basis, and that varies. But typically most, if not all of those, we offer for sale on our annual auction after they go through the process of, that we're legally required to do.
Thank you, Greg. I think, you know, the memorial forest was something that I pushed for when I got on the board, because we've had county board members that have said things like, we should sell every stinking piece of land we own. And I didn't ever subscribe to that. I think the public land that we've held, especially that we've determined to be memorial forest, has been very beneficial to our economy and to who Pine County is for recreation and for keeping our loggers in business. It gives us some gravel reserves. And so we memorialized 38,000 acres roughly. So that it's that's kind of set aside as our base for public land. And then we have ebbed and flowed above that, depending upon the years, of course. But I haven't seen, I mean, boards can change and we can get a new board in here that would undesignate memorial forest, I guess, and have a giant land auction and sell everything. But I think that would meet with much resistance. So anyway, I feel good about our forest, our land department's dedication to working hard on these memorial forests and taking a look at properties and how we arrive at how much land we're going to sell and how much we're going to keep. And it's always a dance.
Thank you, Steve.
Did somebody have something else to say?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I'm just curious, maybe Greg or Mike, are both of these properties accessible by the public?
The 160 acres is landlocked. It's not available for public use. Private lands are, you have to cross private lands to it. The other parcel, the 53-acre parcel along Dollar Lake, that is accessible to the public.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
could you interpret? I can't hear him.
the big parcel is not accessible right now to the public. The 53 acres, the smaller parcel is and has been accessible. I believe when we sell a piece of property that's not accessible, we make it that way, don't we, Greg? If we're gonna sell it, or we sell it to an adjoining landowner?
Yeah, on our landlocked parcels, we do advertise them as landlocked, that there is no legal access to them. And we get calls on that occasionally and make it extremely aware to the potential buyer who might be interested that there's a lot of expense to, if they can't negotiate something with the neighbor, if they have to go the cart way, that it's not a pleasant experience and that it can be extremely expensive. But we do advertise them as landlocked properties, no access.
Yeah,
Did you
Mr.
get
Chairman,
that, Steve? We do
I
sell.
did.
Okay,
I understood him that time. You know, so I will just, I think Mike spoke to this a little, that there's, if that landlocked is sold, it's going to be, could potentially be an expense for the township if somebody wants to put a road in there. Is that correct? I'm really struggling with this.
Yeah. I'll let Mike answer this too, but in my experience, the township can set up an escrow account for the individual who's petitioning the township so that all the legal expenses are covered. But I'll let Mike answer that more because he's probably more directly involved in some of that.
Yes, I don't know if that specifically really makes the township responsible for anything. I think we'd have to talk to our Matt's attorney on that one. But I do know we go through a lot of hassle and contacting the attorneys and have them get involved when these people start complaining about they're not getting along with their neighbor on where that line's gonna be and stuff like that. So I don't think there's an expense actually, other than our time and stuff like that. It wouldn't cost us like $10,000 to the township to help put that road in, but it's the legal part of it and the hassles. You guys understand what hassles come with land stuff. And hopefully, if they put it up for sale, I'd love to see it be offered to the adjacent landowners first, even for, I hate to say it, but for a 10% discount or something. I just threw that out off the top of my head. If they got it, then we don't have to deal with the hassles at all. If one of the adjacent landowners bought it and there's 3 adjacent landowners. So I don't know, that's just an opinion. I'm just thinking out loud, but we're not technically responsible. It's the legal battle that comes into play.
Thanks, Mike. I caught that. I understand that. So will this be offered to adjacent landowners, Greg?
I already won that.
State law requires that we offer it at public auction, and the adjoining landowners are notified that we are offering the parcel. I do believe that the neighbor to the south and partially to the west is interested in it. And there's a possibility that a neighbor to the north is also interested in the parcel. On our landlocked parcels, it's, I just want to elaborate a little bit on that, but the expense can be quite huge on it because as Mike mentioned, it is a hassle for the townships. It's not a pleasant experience quite often for anybody, but the petitioner is responsible for purchasing the property from the person that is having the cartway across. The township also will charge for their attorney fees. They'll also, and the township can also, well, most, from what I understand, will have an escrow account set up, so the petitioner needs to put money into this. The township can also require a survey so that when the road is put in, the cartway or driveway or road, whatever you want to call it, is put in, that it is put in where it's supposed to be. So the petitioner is responsible for a survey. They're responsible for the township's attorney fees, purchasing of the land, and then what they get is a piece of paper basically that says that they have legal access to their property. And then they still need to build the road. So I mean, we can be talking like $20,000, you know, to go a quarter mile. So it's not a cheap adventure by any means. And then also it is public because the township is in the, basically a condemnation of the township, which is why it's not a pleasant experience to do. But it's a public park, so anybody can go down it. On occasion, the township can allow the petitioner to gate it, but that's my understanding of a cartway. And then also, I think I might have brought this up, but legally, we have to offer it at public auction. So we can't just, unfortunately, allow an adjoining landowner to buy it. We're bound by state law to offer it at auction.
What's some property we can do to adjoining landowners only?
Yeah, well, the question arises, is there a process that we can allow sale to an adjoining landowner only? And there is state law that allows that, but it's for what's called non-conforming lots, and they're typically very small lots in town, you know, a little sliver of property that nobody can really do anything, can't build with on it or all. And those are typically just offered to an adjoining landowner to be attached to their property. Another situation might be where there is 10 acres that was split off years ago, you know, half mile with no access. With today's zoning laws, you cannot do that. So under a situation like that, state law allows us to offer it to adjoining landowners only. But those are for just what they consider non-small, non-conforming, irregular shaped lots. Any other questions?
Chairman, one more question. So this parcel, Greg, this 160 acres, we voted on that back in 2014?
Yes, that's correct. It went through the process of approval. And the reason we did it was because at that time, state law required us to receive legislation. Well, state law said we could not sell anything with public waters on it. And believe it or not, on that parcel, there's a little stream that's considered public waters. So in anticipating selling that property, we needed to get legislation approved to sell that because state law said that we couldn't because of the public waters. So part of the process of getting legislation prior to that was to go through the process of classifying the property and then also, you know, the county board approving that and then having the township review it, as well as the state for the sale of it. So we went through all that process on that parcel. And then we did the public meeting like we're having today on the parcel. And then with that, after everything was approved, then we did get legislation to sell, approval to sell that property, but within the last 2 years, that legislation now does not exist, so we do not need to jump through any legislative hoops to sell land on public waters.
So does that 160 have to be on the agenda today?
What is that?
Does that 160 have to be voted on again today? Can we separate those two? Because I'm struggling with this a lot. 53 acres is available to the public. After the fiasco we went through down with Obies, trying to make sure that the public had access to it, whatever that was, we've got a 53 acres here that's really accessible to the public. I'm really struggling with this, Greg. Isn't that what we want?
Well, the parcels are, if I can understand what your question was, the parcels are somewhat segregated, if that's what you want to call it. The 160 acres we approved in 2014, that went through the process. That one is approved for sale. Wilmot Township just wanted to state that they still were in disagreement of that, even though it was approved in 2014. The 53 acre parcel, it's a small parcel. It does not fit into the 3 out of those 5 criteria that Kelly had mentioned why we have memorial forest lands. It did not meet any 3 criteria, those in any, did not really meet any 3 of the 5 criteria, so we did not memorialize it. Thought it was best to be put into private ownership through the sale. Also, the interesting thing about that parcel was prior, I don't have the information in front of me, but Kelly was showing that there was 48 acres and then a 5 acre parcel along Dollar Lake Road. And originally, the access would have been off of the county road to the north, which is mostly swamp. So the actual, to legally get onto the property without crossing private land would have had to go on off of county road to the north. The 5 acres that borders Dollar Lake, we paid $5,000 a few years ago to purchase that so that it made access onto the tax forfeited land not an issue, no questions, not confrontational. I mean, people didn't have to trespass on private land to get to that. And the idea was when we did that was that first we could have a timber sale on the property with the best access off of Dollar Lake. And then we also purchased that 5 acres with the intention that someday we wanted to sell the property, which allowed decent access on that.
So this is a 53 acre pot you're talking about?
Correct. Yeah. It's actually 2 parcels. The previous 48 acre tax forfeited parcel and then a 5 acre parcel we purchased to get better access to it.
Okay, thanks.
So, but the resolution we're going to consider today is to classification of the non-conservation, which is the 53 acre parcel, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I think you're reaffirming your decision back in February of resolution 2020-10.
So my question is, do we really have to pass a resolution reaffirming a resolution that we already made? Is that a question Reese needs to answer, or David, or I don't know.
I'll let Kelly answer that.
Okay.
So it's not a new resolution you're going to be passing today. It's just a decision of, do you want to go forward with the resolution you already passed, 2020-10, classifying this property as non-conservation? Or do you want to reverse course on that?
That's my question, Kelly. If we've already voted on something, unless we're voting to pull it off the sale, do we need to vote on it? Do we
Yes.
we do need to
Yes.
say, this is, yes, we did mean to do it?
Right, you need to revote on it because after you did that resolution, then there was opposition that came up. And so the statute says after the opposition comes
Oh.
up, we have to have this public hearing and the county board needs to redecide if that's really what you want to do after hearing the testimony.
Okay, I was confused about that, so now I'm less confused, I think.
That makes one of us.
Any more questions from the board? Discussion? If not,
Actually, Mr. Chair, I do.
yep,
So, like, let's just say this 160 acres.
yep,
That is landlocked. There's a good chance that if one of the adjacent landowners don't buy it, it won't sell either. I mean,
exactly.
that's another thing where you got to kind of look at this, you know.
I think it's happened more than we realize, Josh. The adjacent landowners go to the sale. They're using the land for nothing right now.
Yeah.
And they sit there and they are probably willing to bid on it if you or I were, you know, or if somebody else starts bidding.
Yeah.
But if nobody's going to bid, why would they spend their money to buy the land that they're already using for nothing?
Mm-hmm.
And so then it goes as an on-sale item and it goes on and on, you know, until somebody finally says, hey, I want that land for myself.
And I'm all for the public land stuff. I think we all are, but if it's not public essentially right now, it's public for a few landowners and that's
Right.
it. We've been down this road.
We've been down this road before, and if it's public land, then it needs to be for the public. If it's not, then somebody privately needs to own it.
Yep. And that's, I think, what the last one, and we were talking 1,000 acres last time, so it was worth it to push an access in there. Well, I don't think it would be worth it for us to make an access to 160 acres, which it is a large piece of property, but is it worth, you know, trying to get access to it, you know? I would think if one of the adjacent landowners would want it, perfect. You know? I guess that's my 2 cents.
Anybody else got anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just like to say I kind of agree with Josh on the 160. It's unfortunate that we have to vote on both these together because I'm kind of torn. It's the 53 acres. If it's available to the public, why would we not just leave it? And that's kind of where I'm caught here on this thing. And I'm you know, we voted on the 160 acres before. I'm okay. It's landlocked. I totally understand that, and maybe one of the adjoining landowners will buy it, but we've got 53 acres that is available to the public. Why would we not leave it? It's just my thinking. I don't know.
Mr. Chair, this is Dave Menke, if I can address Commissioner Chafee's question. I think it goes back to what Greg was referring to when he was speaking a little while ago about the priorities or the basis that the county board set out for classifying land as conservation, and that it would be held for a long-term county management. It's large acreage, it has timber or resource potential, there's environmental uniqueness, and there's public recreational value. And from a management perspective, as the county or any landowner, as you develop land holdings in places remote from each other, it's much more difficult to manage. And so it has the potential of having unauthorized uses like dumping or just things that, you know, don't really encourage the public use, and it's not developed for the public use. And so it doesn't have the same value as the land that's part of a larger tract that the county can actually manage. So Steve, I don't know if that's helpful at all as you think about it, but that's what the, I don't know when it was adopted, but that's what the previous board adopted as kind of a guidance.
Thanks, David, and I understand that. And but, you know, 53 acres is not gonna break Pine County's bank. And if the township says, look, we'd really like, you know, you to leave this because everybody here, anybody has access to this, and if I remember right, that's the one that had the blueberries on it. So that's where I'm struggling, so.
And if I could just add to that, I think that's what you see at different levels of government, where there's state, federal, city, county, and in some cases townships own different land for different purposes. And so if there's a public value to it, there might be a public value to it that is maybe the township would want to consider ownership versus the county, versus whether, I mean, I guess if there's a value to the public, the conversation could be who should own and manage it as well. And it may not fit the county plan, but it might fit the township plan.
And Mr. Chair,
Yep.
to Steve's, you know, I'm kind of there with you, Steve, a little bit too. But the one thing I'm trying to look at is as like a county as a whole, like what was said, the small tracts are much harder for us to manage, and maybe that is something the township, I mean, I would urge them if they, you know, it'd be a blueberry park or whatever type, you know, I wish there was a different way we could maybe do it with the township. But if this is the way, you know, so I don't think the county, you know, personally should get involved with trying to keep a small park, because 53 acres is that big enough for, you know, a couple of people to go shoot grouse maybe, but to deer hunt, probably not, to the adjacent landowners and that kind of stuff. I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
I think we're at the
Steve.
point where we're gonna have to somebody is either gonna make a motion or not make a motion. And we're gonna move forward. I think everybody got a chance to say what they needed to say.
So right now you're looking for a motion for resolution.
Motion to affirm the resolution 2020-10.
Okay, I will make that motion.
Ludwig will second.
Ludwig seconds, Moore makes the motion. Is there any more discussion? I didn't mean to cut you off there, but if I hear no more discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore. District 3, Commissioner Shafee.
I'm really struggling with this one.
Vote your conscience.
I'd have to vote no then.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes. So the motion carries on a 4-1 vote. So thanks for the good discussion, everybody. Mike, thanks for being there and stating your case, and I appreciate your willingness to hang in there with us. So thank you. Introduction of new employee, Kelly.
So good morning again. So I've got Jeremy Williamson coming up, so you can see his shiny face, well, half of it anyways. So I wanted to introduce you guys to Jeremy Williamson. He started last Monday in the planning and zoning office as the environmental tech. focusing on the Wetland Conservation Act. So that's why I wanted to introduce him to you guys, because he's our new face of WACA in Pine County. We're very happy to have Jeremy. He comes to us with a bachelor's degree in science, in biology, from University of Wisconsin Eau Claire. He has a certificate in watershed management from Michigan State University. And he also has 20 years of work experience with Polk County, Wisconsin, in shoreline management and wetlands. So we are very excited to get his talent here in Pine County and happy to have him.
Welcome.
Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll move on to the 2020 tax forfeited land and auction and sealed bid auction. Somebody gonna kick that off?
Yeah, this is Kelly again, County Auditor Treasurer. I can take that. So you have before you the resolutions for the tax forfeit land auction this year. The public auction is set for December 18th. It's a Friday. In times of COVID, it's a little bit strange trying to come up with a plan of where to hold the auction. We are working with the Fair Board to have it actually at the grandstand in Pine City at the fairgrounds. Because with the number of people that attend, that's obviously way more than 10 people in a room. And we wanted somewhere covered in case it's a rainy day. So next week at the Fair Board's meeting, they're hopefully going to be approving us holding the meeting there, or holding the land auction there. And I think that's about all I have on the public land auction. And then before you also have a resolution for the adjoining landowner auction, which you heard a little bit about earlier. So sometimes we get those little small parcels that are non-buildable or non-conforming. And so we offer those to the adjoining landowners on a sealed bid auction. So you have that auction in front of you as well. And both of those are via resolution.
Any questions on that? If not, we'll look for a motion on resolution 2020-53. We'll do that one first.
Ludwig will move.
Ludwig moves. Do I hear a second?
Moral second.
Seconded by Moore. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Shafee. Commissioner Shafee.
Aye, sorry, I was on mute.
District 4, Commissioner Mikrit.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
That passes, and we'll consider the approval of resolution 2020-54. We need a motion for that.
Nick, I'll move.
Thank you.
Ludwig will second.
Got a motion by Mikrat, seconded by Ludwig. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Mikrit.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shafee. Commissioner Shafee.
He's no longer on the call.
Looks
We'll
like he
move
dropped
on.
off the call.
We will move on to grant application for armor equipment. Somebody going to say anything about that?
I don't think there's, Paul's not here.
It's replacement equipment, the armor stuff that, it looks pretty straightforward. The grant requires a 50% match, and that's better than paying 100%, so.
It looks like the sheriff is on the phone. Sheriff, do you have anything to add?
No? As said, it's pretty straightforward. Sorry, I came in late here. So it is something that's going to need replacing. So the 50% match would obviously help that a lot.
We need a motion for resolution 2020-55.
Moore will move it.
Ludwig will second.
A motion by Moore, second by Ludwig to approve resolution 2020-55. Any more discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shapey.
Aye, I missed the last one because I lost you guys. Anyway, sorry about that.
District 4, Commissioner Mickert.
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 4A, letter of support for broadband for the Mille Lacs Band. David, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Mille Lacs Band Corporate Ventures is applying to USDA for a grant to fund a feasibility study for broadband. And they've asked for a letter of support. And I know broadband has been a topic that commissioners have been interested in before in promoting. And then also, given the current pandemic with a lot of folks working from home or doing school from home, we have learned that lack of broadband is a huge hurdle for many people in Pine County. So this seems like a step in the right direction. And so there, if you're agreeable, there is a draft letter that could be approved.
Ludwig will move.
Mickert second.
Ludwig moves, Mickert seconds. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shapey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickert.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
Deficient bridges. Mark, you're gonna tell us about that?
Yes, we're updating our deficient bridge list. This is usually about 4 or 5 years worth of work, but once in a while there's some new structures added on. They get upsized, and so we got 2 Windermere Township large box culverts that are getting added that we've got designed, and we'll probably let those this winter so we construct them next year. And then we remove some that we have completed here the last year or two. So this is kind of our list for the next 4 or 5 years. $8.6 million, and it's hard to do without bonding money. You know, last several years, there hasn't been much bridge bonding money to do our projects. The township projects are at the, so that's good. But so we need a resolution approved so that we can get town bridge money for the Windermere projects.
Ludwig will move it, Mr. Chair.
Mickert second.
He's muted.
Go ahead, Debbie.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shafey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye. But I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So not to the vote, but Mark, when you do this, is there an advantage or is this a process you just have to do all the time, you know, just in the general maintenance of the bridges? Or do you create a list, does that open up funding?
Yeah, to get bond money or township bridge money, you have to have a resolution during it sufficient. So process doesn't mean we can't add projects or do other projects, but it's just one of the things the state requires. The board declares them sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll finish with District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Summary performance evaluation of our administrator, David Minke. We need to act on that, and I think we all have the written comments. Thank the personnel committee for going over that, but before we call for anything, I want to thank David for his leadership, especially during this time from about February till now. It's been a very, I don't think anybody could have predicted that we needed to be looking to hire an administrator that would be administering over employees that are from home, from work, from every imaginable thing. So thank you, David, for keeping us moving forward. I think for the most part, we've done as well as anybody could expect us to do as far as work performance and keeping moving. So thank you very much, David, for your leadership.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate the support and the whole team we have here at Pine County.
Does anybody want to say anything else? And does anybody want to make a motion to approve this summary of conclusion?
Ludwig will move that, and I concur with your comments, Mr. Chair.
A moral second and same comments too.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not,
Commissioner,
yes, go
Dave,
ahead. Yep.
I just want to reiterate what you said. David's done a fantastic job for us, and we really appreciate him. I do. So thanks, David.
Thank you, Steve.
The clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Shafey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
All right. We'll move on to the Corona response update. Sam, are you going to give us a little report?
I sure can. So, there we go. It is still just kind of trucking along. We haven't had any huge uptick in cases, but we still get a couple, just one every day. So right now we're at 128 cases in Pine County. Overall in the state, we've seen the same we've been seeing for weeks now, where it's a slow, steady increase of cases and a slow, steady increase of new cases per day. So we're hovering around 600 to 800 per day, new cases. And across the US, the same trends we've been seeing for weeks now, where especially down south, we are just seeing these massive numbers of new cases every day. that are concerning from a public health perspective. So we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen here. This really slow, steady increase is manageable and we can handle that. It's those huge influxes that we really don't want to be seeing. The big news out of public health right now for COVID is the school announcement that came out last week from the governor that is on the back end, behind the scenes, is a lot more complex than it initially sounds. But it starts with basically, we look at the data from 2 weeks for the county, and that's their starting point of a school district deciding what model do we implement for the schools. So right now, Pine County, the numbers that we have, the equation that they use looks like in person for all students, full-time. But then we're going to have to sit down with all the school districts and look at their capacity to implement all of the requirements the state has around reopening safely. So that has to do with everything from the ability to social distance, and do they have the staff capacity? Do they have the building capacity? The building capacity was a huge issue for city school districts down in the cities. So that's why you might be seeing a county say, by the numbers, you can do hybrid, but their school district capacity is such that they need to do all distance learning because they can't even handle a hybrid approach in terms of distancing them and fitting the kids literally in their buildings. So we're going to be working with the school districts to make sure all of their protocols are in place in terms of students and organizing as best they can to keep the students safe. So that's going to be the next month onward, because once the kids are in school, we still have to be monitoring all this data, monitoring how many kids are out sick, trends of who's sick. If it's a bunch of people living in long-term care facilities, that's not as much of a concern for schools as families with small children. So it's just a lot of monitoring data and then kind of really being flexible with what can we handle, what can we do safely, and we might need to pivot back and forth depending on what the numbers are showing. So that's kind of what we've been working on recently. It's been going good. Questions?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Samantha, do we know what the numbers are in Pine County for testing?
Yep, I can get that. 2 seconds.
Okay.
I will find it. It's in my weekly report that actually gives out data of number of tests per county.
Okay.
We are at around 3,000 per 10,000. Oh, what's it? Cumulative, we're at 3,000 tests per 10,000. So that's around 9,000 tests.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
CARES Act funding distribution update. How's that going, David?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so at the last meeting, you identified some large general pots of money. We've been proceeding with that. So on the food assistance, we have rolled that out with Family Pathways and Second Harvest. And there is actually a food distribution today as the first one of the 16 that they are planning. The housing assistance rolled out August 1st, and that's Lakes and Pines. And so if you do know anyone who is in need of housing assistance, they can just go directly to Lakes and Pines. The business assistance grant program, we are ready to roll that out next Monday, August 10th. Anyone interested in that, there'll be a link on the county website, and we will be working on promotional materials this week. And the plan is we have $500,000 in the phase 1 that we will do grants up to $10,000 per business. And it's to cover their direct expenses. So if they had to make modifications for their food service, for example, or if they had to buy cleaning supplies or disinfecting supplies, the grant application has the comprehensive list. The Initiative Foundation is hosting that, and it will be completely online. And then, if you are a nonprofit business, but you run an enterprise, like you are the VFW, but you have a bar and food service, or you're the museum and you run a cafe, or you're the Osprey Wild Center, if you're a nonprofit, but you run an enterprise type operation, you should apply through the business assistance program. And so if you do get that question, or if anyone has any doubt, they should probably apply, or they can certainly ask me or Kelly Schroeder if they have questions. But we're trying to get all of the business or business-like entities into the business program. We've had some conversation with some community folks on the nonprofit piece. It seems like that will be very similar to the business piece, only it will be much smaller because most of the nonprofits, if you take out the ones that operate enterprises, are very small. And so we'll follow the business assistance program with the nonprofit program, but it'll be structured very similar. And then this is maybe the last time we talked, and we recognized that there would be things that would come up that we weren't aware of. So one of the exciting things that is developing is Pine Technical and Community College is working on a proposal to assist dislocated workers and underemployed workers. And Joe Mulford will be bringing a proposal, I anticipate within the next week, of not more than $100,000, but to put together a program that by the end of the year could grant certificates in some high needs skills. So it would include IT, it would include CNA program, it would include CDL program, and potentially some others, but as a way to get our labor force trained and certified in high demand areas to help those folks get back to work. And so we'll have to figure out which pot of money we're going to take that 100,000 from if we want to move forward with it. But I think we'll have the flexibility to do that. So are there questions on the programs that we're rolling out?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Roger has a question.
So the technical college thing, do we have to decide that today as an expenditure, or are we gonna wait till after?
I think we can wait. We'll get the proposal from the college, and then we can evaluate that, and we can get an idea of what the money would be used for. And then we can go back and look at the funds we have remaining and make a decision.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody got any other updates we need to know about on the COVID stuff? Next, we need to schedule some special meetings for budget. So suggested dates were August 25th, August 31st, and September 9th, all at 9 a.m. And I assume, David, they would all be call-in meetings?
Yes, if that would be, I think that would be the preference. And for the presenters, we have told them that they would be present by a video, and so they're planning for that.
Okay. I may or may not be in some campground right alongside of some trout stream in Montana, but I'll make sure I have reception, and that'd be for the September meeting.
Mr. Chair, was that were you pointing out that we all should meet you there then?
Yeah, we can social distance.
Count me in.
I don't.
Do you need a resolution?
Do we need to make a motion on that, David, or do we just?
Sure, if you wanted to do that, that would enshrine it.
Okay.
Moore will move it.
Ludwig will second.
Any discussion? If not, clerk will take the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Mickret.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll move on to commissioner updates. Looks like Rush Line Task Force. Did you meet, John?
Yep, I sat in on that one. Had a couple of action items, approved our work plan and budget for the year. Also approved the insurance renewal, all the county contributions. Had a presentation there from a gal from Minnesota Department of Transportation. She talked about public transit, public bus services like Arrowhead Transit like we have, and then down south there's a service, Itasca Chisago transit service. Kind of interesting. Arrowhead offers the dial ride, and they also hold a route that they do daily, but the other one down south there just has dial or ride only. Works for them, but I kind of think the route helps us up here a little bit better. Otherwise, they're pretty comparable. Price, the fee was a little bit different. We're like $1.75 a pickup compared to theirs was anywhere from 75 cents to $3.50 per pickup and ride. Project updates, still working on the 15 miles, which is from downtown St. Paul to White Bear. The 21 stops have been identified. The 15% of the plan is all been finalized with all the station locations, as I said. Expected construction period is from 2024 to 2026. And next year, around April, they plan on, they expected renaming it to the Purple Line Transportation. So that was about it.
Thanks. Snake River Watershed.
I was muted. I did miss that meeting, sorry.
All right. One watershed, one plan, the Lower St. Croix, we did meet. I will tell you that I voted against the final plan, mostly because, all because they decided to do a collaborative, which I think is so clunky, and we're used to doing regular old joint powers. So Isani County and us were the two descending votes, so it passed anyway. Their plan is under review now from Bowser, I believe, and we'll be going forward from this point on as a collaborative. We'll see how that works. It seems to be very clunky to me if we follow the letter of the law. Every time we have to decide something, we're going to have to come back and get approval from our respective boards, which doesn't seem to make sense to me. But anyway, we'll see how it works. It'll work. They'll make it work. Anyway, we're nearing the end of, or have neared the end of our planning phase. So we're going down the path of implementation, I guess, at this point. Technology committee was canceled. EMS, did you meet, Matt?
Yes, we did. I'll just hit the highlights quick, and we signed up for a new opioid grant just to purchase the naloxone. Just through the Minnesota Department of Health, a new funding grant. So that was approved. I need my glasses. I think I told you guys about Operation Super Soaker, that's what we're calling it, the atomizers to disinfect the ambulances and all that. Well, yeah. We had ordered 20 so we can make sure the ambulances and they're in such high demand, we're gonna get 9. So we're gonna, we're gonna roll them out to the rural departments, the most rural departments first, any private ones will get to the next batch. And we had an extended discussion with our doctor who was there, Dr. Mari Thomas, that on not the naloxone, the 2 milligram versus 4 milligram doses. And and what happens there is if you have the officers are dealing with it or whoever, the first responders, a 2 milligram will wake them up, and then but sometimes they're still life-saving issues that you have to, but if you give them 4 milligrams, they kind of wake up sober and in withdrawal and are a handful to handle. So that's an ongoing debate at all times, but I think we are going to stay with our standard dose at this time of 2. So I think that's about it. Main points. So thanks.
Thanks. Under other, last night I got a notification from Terry, and then I got some other emails that the prison camp in Willow River is going to be closed by Department of Corrections.
Yep.
I would encourage everyone to reach out to their legislative contacts, and I understand they have to cut money. But, you know, and 50 jobs doesn't seem like a lot of jobs probably to some counties, but to Pine County, it's a huge deal. That program they have going up there, they say it's going to take off and go someplace else, and maybe Terry can speak to that. But they run a good program, and it's unfortunate that we get caught in the middle of this, but I think it's indicative of underfunding corrections forever. And now when you're underfunded already and now you got to cut money, it's really cuts into the meat. So Terry, do you have anything to add?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I would just add that to your point, Willow River is one of the prisons where you get the most programming. The incarceration program, which most would call it boot camp, but it's not just boot camp. Boot camps have been shown to not be successful in terms of recidivism, but because there's encompasses heavier programming and evidence-based practices, it works. It's one of the examples around the country. And I talked to my former intern, Brian Collins, as their associate warden there. I talked to him yesterday, and he just doesn't get it. He found out at 7:45 yesterday morning and said, let your staff know that happened. So now he has to try to run a program from a few different facilities around the state, including southern Minnesota. And he lives in Moose Lake. And so and that was his question to the Commissioner of Corrections is, with all due respect, how are you going to save money when we're now going to be running around the state to try to run these programs? And then in the Togo program, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to that facility in St. Louis County, but it's one of the most beautiful facilities in the state. It's changed its mission over the years, but now to be totally shut down, that facility is owned by the DNR, so they'll repurpose it. But I look at this as it's all short-sighted, and they're going to have long-term ramifications. But when you're trying to rehabilitate offenders into the community, closing 2 minimum security prisons is not the way to go.
Thank you, Terry. That gives me some thoughts to put into my little note that I'm sending to our legislators. But I think it's there's a lot of implications here, and one it's most of those people are there didn't grow up in Pine County. They probably won't get released back into Pine County. but we're doing a great programming is coming out of there. And it is 50 jobs, so well-paying jobs that we can't afford to lose in our county. So I encourage everybody to contact their legislative people. I had another note here, but I can't. Now I've written over the top of it. Anyway, anybody got, David, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I don't. Thank you.
I appreciate your note that you sent off already. Oh, the other thing is, if you get a chance to contact your legislature, stick in a little note, you know, this bonding bill, Mark talked a little bit about it, you know, to just keep kicking that bonding bill and hold that hostage over something else that they want just seems unconscionable to me. And we need this for Pine County. We need it for the state of Minnesota. And maybe there's a chance that when they get ever serious about negotiating a bonding bill, we could get part of that Munger Trail back in there. So please encourage your legislators, our legislators, to consider that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just let everyone know, we have had conversations with Representative Nelson on the Overstar segment of the Munger Trail and getting that $650,000 back into the bill. As of last week, he said that he was going to work to do that. Kelly, you had an opportunity to have a conversation at a forum a week or so ago.
Right, that is correct. And so he was working with the chair of the committee to see about getting that back in. And so he seemed very positive about it.
So I think it, you know, certainly if you do communicate with our legislators, you know, mention the trail. It's a very small amount of money in the context of the bonding bill or most trail requests that have been funded. But if it's a critical start to our effort. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, look at our upcoming meetings. It seems like they've kind of dwindled in some sense, but I think now in this fall quarter, they'll start picking up again. So make sure you get to them. I know it's difficult sometimes to call into some of these committee meetings, but I think it's essential to keep our voice being heard. So anyway, any other business? If not, I'll declare the meeting adjourned. And Debbie, I'll be in a little bit and sign.
Okay, we'll see you then. Thank you.
Okay, yep, bye-bye.